Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what's...
I got it.
Yeah,
Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Please rise. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 7:04. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the March 18th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for March 18, 2019 as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Second thing is the bills list. Manager's report, I'm sorry. I'm already screwing up. Is the manager here?
All is well, no worries. Okay, good to see everybody this evening. Another update, we have been updating you on the comprehensive plan process with Phoenixville. The maps and the various content items for each aspect of the plan are being revised, so updated materials will continue to be posted. Just want to continue to say that so that each one of those sections can be reviewed, and we have that available on our website to link up to all that content. As spring nears, and I think we're getting there, with some warmer temps, we're still grappling with potholes. There's no doubt about it. We are definitely communicating with PennDOT regarding some very serious issues where they're actually doing milling and paving rather than just filling the holes. There's no doubt you're seeing that right now, but send those issues to us so we can work on your behalf if you see issues. The Southeastern PA Regional Household Hazardous Waste Residential Event Schedule is now available and published. We have a few of those flyers posted out here in the Township Building. We're going to get that up on the website and out on social media. Those events run from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Chester, Montgomery, Bucks, and Delaware counties at various locations from now through November. Although some electronics are not accepted, lots of household items, solvents, and cleaners are accepted, and we also have information on our website about all the things that you may have trouble finding a way to recycle or dispose of those products. The community garden is open for registrations. The registration forms are on the website. We have them available for the 2019 season here at the office. The second annual Festival in the Park event will take place on Saturday, June 8th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. here at the park. I know the program activities and the schedules is underway. We are looking for sponsors to support all the good programs we have, so if you're interested or know a company that would be, we'd gladly work with them regarding our sponsorship levels and that program. We also have a cleanup coming up. Green Valleys has very nicely offered to conduct a volunteer cleanup of the township open space around Griffith Farm and the Horseshoe Trail property across the street on Route 100 that they have also in the past planted trees. So they're very good stewards. We're thankful for their help to maintain that open space.
When that?
Oh, I'm sorry, April 11th. April 11th. And they do have a rain date for April 12th. So they're doing that throughout the day. I'm sure if you contacted Vicki Lawbach at Green Valleys, if they need more volunteers, they'd be happy to have you. In the Building and Zoning Department, we have 30 permit applications processed. We are seeing that revenue increase and more activity. The construction of Wawa is underway, as you can probably take note. Sunderland Avenue, the connection between Eagle Farms Road and the Creekside development by Toll Brothers is underway, and they're really trying to make progress getting that project done. In the Finance Department, we have our year-to-date versus actual for February 2019 budget reports posted online, and our 2018 audit, the DCD audit portion, is complete with a clean opinion. We do have our financial statements that go along with that, and they're not quite finished yet. We'll have a presentation in May on those items. In the Public Works Department, we have our new roadmaster really getting to know the township roads and the program itself, certainly completing a lot of maintenance to roads, equipment, and vehicles, adding a lot of stone, peeling a lot of potholes that we can control, working on behalf of the township to really talk to PennDOT about those issues, completing shoulder work that we have in advance of our paving program. And also staff had repaired the walking bridge at Weatherstone, so that was in time for some hopefully walking and enjoyment there. We are working with Duraco Construction to finish out Flint Road. We have some issues we need to address there. And we are coordinating the completion of survey and prep bid documents for various projects associated with the 2019 road improvement program. One more item that I did want to take note, the Zoning Hearing Board is scheduled to meet next week on April 9th at 7 p.m. And this is concerning a special exception request for 670 Birch Run Road and Scott Risbin, and the barn located at 670 Birch Run and the whole farmstead there. He's looking to take that barn and convert that barn to 4 dwelling units. So, as part of that, we have that posted as well. Thank you.
Sarah, let me add something first before you go. Regarding the hazardous waste thing, I assume some of you might know my house is on the market, and to get it on the market, I had to do a lot of packing. And between my kids and I, we had 7 TVs and 2 monitors I had to get rid of. And I just share with you, not that tidbit, but to get rid of them, it's really, really simple. There's Lanchester landfills. You take 23 all the way up to 322, make a left. 5 minutes down the road, you drive in, you say hi to the guy in the booth, you drive up a little further, take it up, put it down, you're gone. The only thing is you can only drop off 3 things at a time, so of course it took me 3 trips. But please try to get rid of your hazardous or your electronics that way rather than other ways. Sarah, you had a comment?
Yes, what was your...
Microphone, please.
Thank you, Brian. He's right, Sarah. You've got to use the microphone so everybody can hear you.
You didn't go to that 5G program, did you?
What program was that?
What was your last item? Because that's what my question was on.
Oh, special exception?
Yes, do you have a recommendation from the Historic Commission on that? And
Sure, go ahead.
go into that, I'll do the second part of
Okay.
the question after that.
Sure. Regarding the historic overlay, Scott did come in preemptively with his plan just to get the familiarity of the commission with his project. So they are aware. The historic overlay calls for review regarding revisions in use for accessory dwelling of existing historic structures. We're looking at a multifamily dwelling. I did send the application to the chairman for informational purposes.
But this is adaptive reuse of a historic building, right?
Right.
And they don't have it. The zoning hearing board doesn't need an opinion from the commission on that, I take it.
Right, it's not called for specifically for this use change in the ordinance, but Scott is very much willing to come to the commission meeting to talk about his plan. He knows he needs to do that. So, if that is helpful.
Are we going to be represented by council at the zoning hearing board?
No, not at this time.
Chris.
Not the township. The zoning hearing board town.
I know.
Okay.
Is there anything, this is going to be basically a rental property, what the person wants to do? Or are they looking to convert it to multi-unit and then create a condo association, subdivide it, and sell them off as separate condos?
I believe rental right now.
Okay, what would stop them in the future from condoizing? Anything?
No.
Make it structured. It has to be a specific structure for a condo, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't have to be a specific structure for a condo. A condominium association is basically you would take an existing building, whether it's a single unit or a multi-unit, usually it's multi-unit, you create a condominium association, and you come through and you subdivide the property. It's an actual one building, and you're basically taking various portions of it, which would be apartments at the time, and creating different tax parcels for each of those, and then common areas for the condominium association to govern. So, you know, I don't know whether it makes a difference. You'd probably get more taxes out of it if it was condoized, but, you know, they both have their pros and cons to them. So it all depends. I'm just curious to know if there's anything being done in, to either prevent or promote condoization versus rental units.
George and Brian were...
Sarah, that's a good follow-up. Can you try to get that question answered the next meeting?
I was looking around for a historic commission member, but there were several of us audience people. George and Brian were there. And I believe Scott mentioned that he was going to flip the barn property, which makes it sound like condoizing it or selling it off to someone to be the manager of it, and he was going to maintain the house as a rental property himself. So that's what he told the Historic Commission.
Any other comments? George?
I don't think he said that. I think he's talking about renting.
Any other comments? Seeing, we'll move on to the bills list. Thank you, Erica, by the way. We put so much effort into writing those. Tonight we're going to address the township bills list in the amount of $54,334.18. The reimbursable bills list is $44,658.75. The subdivision utility plant bills list is $411.90. The three total $99,404.83.
I move to approve the bills list dated April 1st, 2019, the total amount of $99,404.83.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is the treasurer's report. Do we have a report?
Sure. Yes, we do, and I'll go through this a little bit. We are trying to certainly understand and hear resident responses and comments on providing information that is helpful to residents. So, you know, we always ask, please bear with us as we do that, because our intention is to put forth information that's helpful to you to understand our performance indicators. So what we have before you this evening is a picture of the revenue versus expenditures for the time period of both just on a monthly basis, activity in February of 18 versus activity in February of 19, and then we take a year to date and look at both January and February of 18 versus January and February versus 19. A couple highlights between, just based on revenue first. I am on the Chester County Tax Collection Committee, and thankfully I get a lot of good, insightful information, especially on earned income tax receipts. We had in January, I had a question of, well, this is a little lower than what I anticipated projected for the year. I worked with Keystone Collections to understand some of the nuances of that. We are back on track, but we do have, as far as our top 10 taxpayers for EIT, we lost one of the highest from last year, and it was pretty significant. So we are evaluating that. We do have people, you know, moving into the township, and that supports the collection. So that is coming back in line for budgeted figures for the last 2 months. And even for myself, looking at the collections within March as well. But it's something you always want to monitor, for sure. In addition to that, real estate taxes, of course, we are waiting to collect the majority of those payments, and watching transfer taxes and other income. Building department income will increase as the activity increases for the township as well. We have interest as well that is different, and we are receiving more interest now versus 18 and certainly in 2017. One thing of note as well is that the sewer income was certainly a lot higher in 2018. We only have one plant right now, which we're still working on trying to get dedicated directly to Bucks County, which is the Courts of Chester Springs sewer plant. As far as expenditures are concerned, we're pretty much in line with last year, but we have more expenditures this year for the road program, and that is due to the French Creek Bridge. We paid for a large invoice in January to take care of that very important project. So we're monitoring spending, operational spending. We certainly have a lot of projects we want to take on. I will note legal and engineering is lower. We certainly had a lot of projects, mainly with the sewer sale during co-ed. So just to make note of that. In addition, within the report, you'll notice the balances on our various funds. I'm not going to name each and every one. You can certainly do that and review it. But our total township balance is $9,932,501, given the, also take note that that includes our capital money. As a summary of budget performance by fund, we did include an overview of the entire budget, just to make sure that we are tracking that and everything is in line for the year. We have that noted there, and in addition to that, we have our reports that go by line item that are posted on the website for our treasurer's report. Any questions, we can certainly answer that.
Any questions for our treasurer, Daniel? Go ahead, John.
You ready? Okay, I'm going to say this is getting nicer, but a couple things. On the first page, it says February 2018. Is that a new act or technique? On this next page, it goes against budget. Because 2018 is going to vary. You might get $4 million for the sale of sewer and the sewer plant income, so it kind of might overshadow the operation.
Yeah, I hear you.
And you commented about the different funds. Both in what's listed online and what's here has no net income except for general fund.
Right.
And I think it's appropriate, like the sewer fund has lost $18,000 so far, and there's a surplus in the capital fund, which is interesting in itself. But I think there should be a total on all those lines if you want to, in effect, control it, do something about it, or address it. I mean, I guess you're going to collect the money on the sewer fund. You've spent $22,000 and we earned $4,000. Is that something that's going to get made up or get worse?
Right.
Which? Will you bill all that $22,000?
As far as Courts of Chester Springs, we have, we will be, I have to look at the schedule for the billing. It's going to get better. It is, but we have an interesting situation because we have a settlement agreement between the township and Pulte. So we also have to follow that, and at times, we are flush because we have to pay them a balance of revenue that is received, and we have an administrative fee that goes into that, but that we'll receive more revenue. So I don't want to overcomplicate it, but we're really trying to work towards dedicating that plant. But income in, expenses, will be flush.
Okay. At the last meeting, slightly different subject here, you mentioned that the budget was distributed evenly throughout the year.
Not for all
Was that-
accounts.
Yeah, correct, that's not, sure, Mike, I didn't want to, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
That's all right.
Is that something that hadn't been done? I think in the past, it may have been distributed a little bit by month. And actually,
Right,
that's not a blanket statement because some of the purchases are identified by month.
right.
But, and last month there was a big variation from budget, but one thing, the real estate taxes, which I would say 80% come in May,
Right.
is distributed throughout the year. So there's so many months that May will be real awkward. It won't follow budget.
The proportion,
I mean, I would suggest that the budget be done to follow a little bit what you know. I mean, it's not an impossible thing. I sort of hate to see us doing less this year than we did last year in financial presentations and control, et cetera.
thank you.
That's all.
That's a good point during the budget season. Question to ask to John.
My turn, John.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'd like to compliment Erica on the treasury report because it has a lot more color and detail and explanation than we have had in years gone by. In years gone by, it was like trying to.
Excuse me, Brian. Gentlemen? Brian had the floor.
In years gone by, trying to get information about the township finances was like trying to go and pull teeth from a piranha. And Eric seemed to do a lot better job. I do compliment John also on this suggestion that he has, because I'm seeing them being appropriated. And it kind of hit me. I think there are certain things in the budget that have a historical pattern, and it probably would be better to be, follow what they were in the past. We probably have the data to establish what the trends are. And then other stuff, it just, you might as well go and do 1/12 of the total and go from there.
Thanks, Brian. Now, George, you had a comment?
Yeah, what I was just saying, John's comment about, making it look good for comparison. I think the year-to-date comparison, last year, year-to-date, and this year-to-date, will get you into that ballpark, presumably, right? We guess that last year's expenses are spread similarly to this year, and revenues the same way. So, I think that'll get us it. But my other question was, why does the chart, it says year-to-date expenses, and I think that's what the chart shows, what percentage of each category was year-to-date? Is that right? What is percentage of year-to-date revenue?
What percent?
Is that?
You're looking at plant and building and plant?
No, I'm just looking at the title here over the pie chart. It says
Oh.
year-to-date expenditures. That's what the chart is, I think. That's what it looks like the chart is.
As a percentage of revenue. Year-to-date
Right.
expenditure
As a
versus
percentage of,
year-to-date.
as a percentage of revenue, not a
Yes.
percentage of expenses?
No,
Year-to-date.
you have your revenue, then you have your expenses. What made up, or what is the breakdown of that revenue
Right.
in expenses?
Can't they be different?
There could, but then there should be a little slice here for any profit or loss.
So we broke
I
even?
don't know if there is one, but
I didn't see one.
yeah, it'd be a small
No.
amount. It's probably.
Okay.
Any other comments? John?
I forgot one more of the extremes. The winter maintenance, we had money all through the summer for snow removal, and I don't think we used it.
Well, you gotta admit, we were prepared.
Yeah, it's not, but with global warming, I think
Leave it to you to pick up on that. Very good. Okay, Treasurer's report. Next, we have a presentation by Chris Carroll, again about the anti-discrimination ordinance.
Not really here to go into detail like I have before. There's many, I should say dozens of municipalities in Pennsylvania, including some of the Class A cities and counties, have anti-discrimination ordinance that expands protected class beyond sex and religion, skin color, and so forth, to sexual orientation, gender identity, and so forth. Right now, there is a bill that's stuck in Pennsylvania House because Darrell Metcalf won't allow it to come to a vote. He's blocking the vote, and that's been blocked for 2 years. So I have little faith that it's going to go anywhere in Pennsylvania, although it does have bipartisan support. Until Metcalf steps aside and lets it come to a vote, it's not going to go anywhere in the state. There are a couple bills currently federal level that may pass. I don't think they're going to be veto-proof. I have my doubts that it's going to pass in the Senate, and even if it does, I would expect a presidential veto on these bills that would expand protected classes. The only issue I have with all these bills is that I don't think it goes far enough. Currently, if these bills were to pass and you have expanded protection at the state or federal level, that's fine and good, but it does not cover marital status. Therefore, businesses throughout the entire country are still free to discriminate against married and unmarried people for whatever reason. And I think that it's kind of on us to see the marital status is protected as well. I have been in touch with Erica. She's been in touch with Phoenixville Borough because they have an ordinance there. And right now, it's just coming along slowly. So it's really in the supervisor's hands at this point. There's nothing that I can do to force it along other than gather more and more support amongst community residents. So that's really it. Nothing more to say other than it's really in your hands, guys. Nothing else that I can do. I don't think it's going to go anywhere at the state or the federal level, even though there are bills pending. So I wish I could take it out of your hands and you wouldn't have to worry about it, and the state and the feds could step in, but I see too many roadblocks at those levels from people that don't want to see it passed.
Chris, you know how I feel. I agree with everything you state and what you believe, but it's not the township's business, and we do not have the court system set up like the state and like the federal government does have to adjudicate such things. I know that sounds coming from the cheap seats, but the reality is everybody that works for the township and every committee that works for the township, if they said something wrong, that could set in motion what you're proposing. That could cost the township hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now bear with me first, because we have to be prepared not just for the likely consequences, but even the unlikely consequences. And to subject that in an area that I don't think is our place.
Well, do I need to go back to the microphone?
Please do, so everybody can hear.
All right, so I'm going to try to play devil's advocate here a little bit. The township already could say something or do something wrong that could cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because Governor Wolf has issued an executive order. I had originally thought this executive order expanded the definition of sex to include orientation and gender identity to include all Pennsylvanians, but it doesn't. It only protects government employees and government subcontractors. So let's play a hypothetical. Somebody from the township says or does something wrong towards a government employee or subcontractor. There's your lawsuit right there.
Yeah, why would we want to expand that to a greater number?
It doesn't. The only thing you'd be expanding it to is marital status. I mean, that's...
Well, no, that's to public employees, but you want us to do it as an ordinance that would cover the township.
Well, I mean, I'm exploring all options here to get you guys off the hook.
And gender identity, I would never support.
Why?
Because I will not regulate thought. There's no way you can regulate thought, and it's a downhill position.
We had a meeting about this, and you asked for scientific evidence.
There is no science, Chris.
That's not true. I sent you the science, I sent you the links this summer. Right. I sent you the links, and I showed you that there's science behind it.
The science isn't there, Chris. You're either a male or you're female. That is it. You can think whatever you want about who you are or what you are, and that's fine. There should be nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely incorrect.
Chris,
I cannot find it.
You cannot find it. doesn't exist.
I sent you the links.
I don't care what the links say, it doesn't exist. You
The
can either be
science-
male or
science-
female, you have no
science-
other choice.
Okay, so you're saying that intersex people don't exist?
Don't speak over.
You're saying that people that are born with both sets of genitalia don't exist and it's
Yes,
all made up?
they do exist.
They do?
Yeah, they're both
Okay.
male and female, yes.
How do you know
And
that?
that's physical. You're asking for thought.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. You're saying that people can identify as a sex. That is
There
not
is
possible.
science behind this. I showed you the
Okay,
links.
Chris, I'm not gonna get into your argument about
Okay.
psyche, okay?
So basically.
It's either gotta be physical.
We're having, one of the supervisors is on record as rejecting the scientific studies
That's
done to prove that these people exist.
They think they exist.
There we go. That's,
Any other comments from the audience?
This seems like an uncomplicated, or just a thing to complicate things even more. I mean, I don't understand why it's even on here, but is this something that would extend to private businesses?
Oh, yes.
Microphone.
Use the microphone.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is just sort of a strange item to even be considering here in such a town, in a township basis. And I sort of agree, you know, there's always going to be anomalies out there for everything. I mean, whether it's humans or animals or whatever, there's always going to be the exceptions. And I think that reasonable people just deal with the exceptions and everything's fine. And that's what we've been doing ever since this township started. I don't know anybody. You know, I've known lots of gay people in the township. I've known all these people. I've never seen any problems. I mean, you know, there hasn't been a problem. So by introducing potential liabilities through legal actions, I think it's just asking for trouble. It's not necessary. Also, you know, if I have a business, and let's just say I have a private business, and I may have people that might have prejudices towards certain things. My purpose of my business is to make money and be successful. If by having somebody come into the business, it disrupts it, then that's a problem. I'll give you a prime example. Back in the 80s, my business was 90% female. And it was a big problem because the females had their times of months and everything, and it got very, very complicated. And so I had to cut back on females and bring in males because there was a certain modifying factor that they had that changed the way the interactions of things had. I even had 2 employees die of AIDS back in the 80s. I hired gay people. I didn't really care as long as they got the work done and they weren't offensive or pushy in any way. So we deal with it. We just accept it. When you go and start and you want to put some big law together where suddenly, you know, we all have to march down the street and try and identify with something that's sort of the anomaly. We'll call it the abnormal if you want. It is not normal, it is abnormal. And if you want to accept the abnormal, that's fine, okay? If you want to be abnormal, that's fine. But I don't think we have to create a whole new line of people and animals and trees and everything else that we have to give special attention to because they're different. Just accept them, and if you have a business where you can't accept them, you don't. From a legal standpoint of a federal or state or local government, I think that they probably fall under a whole set of different rules. But I was trying to figure out whether this was something a township was trying to pass that even applied to private businesses, which seems to me to be a big step over the line. So anyhow, with most things, I think I don't know anybody in West Vincent or any of the nearby townships that have ever gone after, you know, people for being homosexuals or whatever they are. I think they kind of know it and they just keep it to themselves and they conduct business and go on. I mean, the Bertrandville Cafe was started by a gay person. Did people not go there? No, it did quite well. Did they accept them? Yeah, quite well. Did he participate in all kinds of social things? Yes, quite well. There wasn't a problem. So let's not create a problem by trying to get some sort of document that turns us all into people that have to start feeling guilty if we don't analyze where somebody's preferences are. So, anyway, that's not what I came here to talk about, but that's
Thank you.
Good job.
I was going to say it cuts both ways, people. You know,
Chris, I'm gonna make a nomination that Brian becomes the microphone.
The whole argument here is giving out special rights to people, and it cannot be further from the truth, okay? Right now in this township, you can be discriminated against because you're a straight person. You can be discriminated against because you're a married person in this township, okay? It's not against the law. Somebody who has a private business or a public business can refuse service to those people based upon the fact that they're married and or straight. It cuts both ways. And I wouldn't want it to happen to me or my family or my wife or my child. So you should think about what you're doing here.
But has it?
That's not the point.
No, it is the point,
it's
because
not.
you keep making laws for things that don't even exist. That causes a problem, like Chris was saying.
Well, you can take, you have your opinion,
I
but you're saying we're gonna get sued if we put this ordinance into place. Well, you could get sued.
No, we probably won't, because I think Phoenixville hasn't been.
They haven't.
All right, and I don't think anybody else has.
They have an ordinance there. But
But they're putting themselves in a position.
So what happens if West Vincent does not enact equal treatment for everybody and then gets sued for not protecting its residents and people who do business?
I don't think the township can get sued for a private business owner discriminating on somebody, to be honest. Now, if we write the ordinance, we could.
All right, so,
we could get
I
pulled
mean,
into it, but no, we
You
can't.
know, a private business owner can't say, I'm not going to serve you because you're black. It's against the law, okay? What's the difference? What is the difference here? Normal. Here we go. So you're saying that people that are gay are abnormal.
No, I don't think anybody's saying that.
Somebody just said normal.
Wait,
okay?
you can now, oh, okay.
I mean, somebody said that, what's the difference? Well, apparently black people are normal, but intersex people are abnormal and gay people are abnormal. This is the kind of attitude that led to racial segregation, okay? This is an awful, antiquated attitude that people have that are labeling people abnormal based upon their orientation or their identity. And it's an horrendous point of view to have.
Again, it's not an issue. If it's not an issue, why are we addressing it? I don't understand.
Well, I think it is an issue because somebody in this audience just said that black people are normal and gay people and transgender people are not. They just certainly
that's fine. But who was discriminated?
Statistically based. Statistically, what percentage of people of gay are gay? Is it 1%? Well, that's abnormal because the normal is 50-50.
Well, it doesn't even matter. Is there anybody that's being discriminated against? Is it an issue? Is it a problem to solve? If it's not a problem to solve, why are we doing this?
All right.
Why would we do this?
I just give up because it's obviously not going to get anywhere with the 3 commissioners who are on the board right now, and it's a tremendous waste of my time trying to expand protected classes to people. Okay? I'm done. Thank you. I'm done. I can't get it passed with you guys because you're just putting up roadblocks. So I'm going to even table the entire issue that I had next was about vaccines and the fact that you have skyrocketing illnesses and deaths of easily preventable illnesses in this country right now. And I was going to see, is there anything the township can do, but you guys are just going to throw your hands up in the air and say, it's not a problem. You know, it's ridiculous.
Thank you, Chris.
You know, forget it. I'm done.
I took a look at the links you provided on your earlier paper, and one of the things that I picked out on it is that there's a lot of litigation going on in this area, and as John says, you know, litigation costs money, and it comes down to what is the benefit to the township. Not necessarily a feature, but a benefit to the township. And all I'm saying is that they are, I'm going to say, acting in a way to minimize the chances of us being involved in litigation.
Okay, well, I can respect that. You know, I mean, that's a legitimate viewpoint. You guys don't want to have us leaking money out because we get sued. That's legitimate. But to say that...
Microphone. Chris.
Sorry, Brian. To say that that's a legitimate concern is a financial concern, and I understand that, you know, and I wanted to help allay the cost of writing the ordinance and taking that out of the township's hands, there wouldn't even be an issue by doing a GoFundMe and raising the funds. Now, I don't know whether there's any ethical issues behind that, whether the township could take donated money to pay for legal fees, and there might be, and I can understand that. But to say that it's not a problem because nobody's complained, it really kind of sweeps the whole thing under the rug.
Okay, how do you define a problem then? Explain to me how you define
All right,
a problem.
okay, well, we had this conversation before. What do you do, hypothetically, if it's early 1960s, and the Civil Rights Act has not been passed yet, and it is still legal to refuse to marry interracial couples?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Were there people that wanted to enter racial marriages? Was there problems?
Yeah, of course there were. They
But then there's a problem to solve, isn't there? There's
right,
no problem to solve here.
Wouldn't you rather be proactive?
No,
Okay, so
no,
you're
absolutely
gonna wait.
not.
You're gonna wait until the problem comes, and then.
This is how we ended up with 4 billion laws in this country. It's preemptive.
Okay.
It's not a good thing to do.
Okay. All right. So I've calmed down a little bit, and I got angry, and I'm sorry for raising my voice, and I apologize. You and I are going to disagree on this issue until the day we die. So we might as well get over that and focus on things that we can come together on.
Right.
Is there anything the township can do to stem the rising tide of people refusing to get vaccinated when they are medically able to do so? I am a proponent of people who have medical reasons to not get vaccinated. I believe the philosophical and religious exemptions are a red herring. If you look at all the major world religions, they all say vaccines are okay. The Catholic Church has come out and ruled on this years ago. It's in their doctrine. They've told their followers that yes, you can. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. You can Google it. I've already looked up the papacy declarations. You're shaking my head at me. You can Google it. I will be glad to even show it to you. The Catholic Church has said that today people may get vaccinated with permission of the church if they're worried about sinning against the church because of the origin of these original cell lines. The Catholic Church has given their blessing. You may get vaccinated. It's true.
So you're saying that the Catholics don't approve of vaccination?
There are some people in the Catholic Church that object on a personal issue because 2 or 3 of the vaccines that are produced come from what is called a cell line. And these cell lines originated in the 1950s from fetal tissue. And that is what they base their objection on. And I can understand it, but it's a red herring because their leaders have already said it's okay, we will allow this for the greater public good. So I really feel that, this is my personal belief, vaccines should be mandated for everybody except those who are not able to get them safely. So is there anything that we can do to turn the tide of people refusing to get vaccinated? Is there any way we can compel them?
Okay,
On a
let me ask you a question.
on a township
Schools-
level, I doubt it very
Yeah, I
much.
doubt it.
That really goes with the county's
Department
Board of Health.
Right,
So doesn't the school require it?
No, the school district does not require it. There are, at the state level, the Department of Health, there's currently religious exemptions allowed and philosophical exemptions allowed. And children are allowed to attend school unvaccinated unless there's an outbreak. Then they can be prevented from coming to school. This, unfortunately, at the national level, doesn't seem to be working anymore. There are actually at least one family is suing their public school district to get their child back into school during an outbreak, even though he's been unvaccinated. And I think that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Chris, let me wrap this up.
Yeah.
No question, right now it's a hot topic with the measles and mumps breakout across the country. But the federal government doesn't come into our township and say, Erica, there's a pothole on Flowing Springs Road, you gotta fix it. The township isn't gonna say to the federal government, let's pass this law. It's just, that's not the way it works.
But is there any way, I don't want to force people at gunpoint to get vaccinated. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people should be forced to put something into their body that they don't want to.
But
Half the room might disagree with you right there.
Right,
That's
but-
why it's a state or federal issue,
Right, but
not a township
so there's
issue.
nothing we can do.
Well, I think there's
Is there
something
anything
we
that-
could do, like we have a newsletter coming out. I mean, we could say something about it, how vaccines are good, I don't know what to write in there, but.
I'm gonna leave it at this, 'cause we're taking too much time.
I'm thinking one of the things that can be done, rather than saying we're gonna force you to get vaccinated against your will, is to say, listen, that's your choice, you're not gonna get vaccinated, but there are certain things that you now cannot do as part of our society because you've made that choice. Pennsylvania regulates business licenses. I have a license as a real estate broker. I have to renew that every couple of years by taking continuing education and so forth. There's some way the state can compel people that are able to get vaccinated to do that by saying, okay, fine, you don't want to get vaccinated, you can't renew your license.
We're talking about kids. We're
Well,
talking about children, really, basically.
Well, I'm talking about kids, and I'm talking about some adults too. I know adults that haven't been vaccinated. I know them personally. You know, there are members of my family, the extended family, that have never been vaccinated, and I don't agree with it. But is there any way to compel them and say, well, listen, we're going to make life a little bit harder for you if you're able to get vaccinated, if there's no medical danger, and you're refusing to do so, well, maybe we're not going to allow you to renew this license or that license.
Chris, I'm gonna start limiting the discussion because we're not making, Erica, but Mike's idea of a newsletter and something appropriate that, and maybe you want to touch base with the school board to see how they feel about it.
Sure.
Brian?
I'm going in basically that same direction. I see no reason that the Township Board of Supervisors should mandate that people get vaccinated. Township Board of Supervisors can strongly recommend that people get vaccinated. It's before Chris's time, but I do remember when homes were posted with notices that they were quarantined because they had measles, mumps, etc. My brother had measles. My parents tried to go and get me to get measles. It didn't happen. I never had mumps. 4 years ago, I took the initiative. I did get the MMR vaccine because of, for people that are older, mumps and measles aren't really a good thing at all. And I think that might be something, rather than just hit the school board, hit the Chester County Health Department. We've also have that, the Pennsylvania Health Department down there in Lionville, they've got an office. And I think they can provide some content of where we went from in the 1950s when all these childhood diseases were very prevalent to now when they tend to be not prevalent, and if you have people that are unvaccinated now, it's an ugly situation. You watch what's going on at the universities with people all of a sudden saying, I gotta be vaccinated. All I can say is, it might be good to do a recommendation and let it go at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Leary to say, are there any other comments? Thank you, Chris and Brian and Chris. Next, we're moving on to the subdivision land development portion of this, the natural lands parking lot, land development request for escrow release. What's up with that? You need that money back?
Contractor will be paid, can't imagine why.
I move to approve the escrow release number 1 in the amount of $117,660 to National Lands Trust for 1805 Kent Road.
I'll second the motion.
Any comments from the audience? Brian, as you're walking up, I see Brian Kulakowski signed off on this, but he didn't write a letter of approval like he normally does.
This is a different type of financial security.
I'd still like to see approval letters.
Okay. Noted.
Brian.
And this is a question that's directed to the other Brian back there. Are we getting close on the opening of the Natural Lands Preserve over there? Do we have a date approximate, maybe?
I can tell you unofficially that I believe May 5th there's going to be some kind of grand opening celebration. I would just say check the Natural Lands website for more information on that. But last I heard, May 5th. Is there something?
Okay.
They keep me in the dark about this.
Okay. I'm not going to touch that one. Erica, could you also show that out on the township access points? about when that occurs?
Oh, sure, I think it's a celebration. Did I see that correctly?
Celebration, that would be.
Yeah, I thought I saw that, May 5th, yeah.
It's the Sunday.
Yeah. Sure thing.
I just have one thing. What was the amount again? Could you read it?
It's $17, I think?
Yeah, I think
Just make sure it agrees with my paper.
117,660.
117.6, right?
$660. $660.
Okay.
Well, what do you have, anything lower?
Not more than I asked for it. By $60.
Okay.
Chris, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, since we're speaking about parking and everything, I drove past here, I guess someday last week, and I noticed that there was the beginnings of a soccer game out there, and not only was their parking lot full, but this one was. And I know you're all very much aware of how much I sort of resent the tearing down of that barn. I think you're all going to find yourselves in a hole when this place gets so overrun that there's just no parking. I mean, out here, when I arrived here, there's not even really a soccer game out there, but the lot out here is about full too. There's literally nowhere to expand here. And up at the barn, there's plenty of room to expand for the next 100 years. But if you tear it down, you're going to end up spending millions of dollars to build a new one. So you're talking about natural lands parking, and I love what they've done on Flint Road, and I think that's all great. But you know, I look at this township building, and I look how everything's jammed in here, and people trying to park here and park for meetings here and park for the thing there. And I think you're going to end up in a multi-million-dollar hole in about 10 years from now when you suddenly realize you have to move somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. The issue of the park.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, when is the township park going to open up at Brinkoven? Or is it open and I just missed it? I noticed that the fence seems to be open, but...
Erica's got the answer.
Oh, it's fine. There's a lot of work to do at the site. There's no doubt about it. The county, we're still waiting for our NPDES permit for the demolition of the buildings there. We are in a draft for our specifications, which is very good, but we do need to make sure that the site is safe. I mean, that is the #1 issue for the township right now. And there's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of very good work by our Parks and Rec Commission to have a trail plan. They're working on that right now. We're cleaning up the property where we can, and it's going to look nicer, and we need to make sure it's stable and safe as a site. So we have to coordinate all those various factors. So it's still to be announced at this point.
Any other comments from the audience? And we'll move on to Amanda Maxwell, 1830 St. Matthew.
Did we vote on that? Release?
No. You really don't want that money.
Good point. That's why I come to these meetings, John.
All those in favor of
Aye.
the escrow release? Aye. Now you can go home, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay. The Amanda Maxwell, 1830 St. Matthews Road subdivision extension request.
I move to approve the subdivision extension request for Amanda Maxwell, 1830 St. Matthews Road.
I'll second.
Any comments from the audience?
Did you say to when?
I'm sorry?
When?
Still didn't get that. See, that's why we need microphones.
November 29th.
You know I'm hard of hearing. It's not an act, Sarah. I can't hear you, or I'll tell you. I assume we need a vote?
Did we vote on those? We did. Did we?
No.
No, we didn't, okay. All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is old business Stephanie Williams, 2898 Flowing Springs Road, request for relief from driveway requirement, section 2201.
I second. I move to approve the request for relief from driveway requirements, section 2201.E.8.c for 2898 Flowing Springs Road, with conditions that the driveway meet ordinance requirements and the location remains in the general vicinity of the proposed location as presented.
I'll second.
I think can't speak for, I assume we're all in favor of granting this request. I'm a little squeamish because if there's no exacting diagrams. So this is a concept that we're about to.
Can I show you this real quick?
Sure.
All right, sorry, it's not big enough for everybody, but just, this is what I brought to the planning commission after what we did last time. So, this is my property here, this is the 5.6, this is my house here, and there's the general vicinity of where I want to put the house. But then, if I can't have an additional driveway here, I have to extend this one to go
all in favor of that. But by just blanket approving that with any dimensions, that 50-foot driveway could turn into a 100-foot driveway, and that's what I'm saying, it can't. This is.
Well, it has to, I guess the real issue, the question.
Well, that is your original driveway?
Yeah, original
Well, she's
driveway.
allowed to do that anyway.
Right, I could do that anyway,
Right.
just would they tear up everything.
Yeah.
So it's really just, can I have the additional
And
one?
also
As long as it meets all the ordinances that are required, that's really the only question that we're asking.
You're going to get approval, but you're going to have to go through the drawing process at some point with exacting measurements.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I talked to the development engineer today, and so we just,
Okay.
but I needed the okey dokey to do it before they know what they're doing. So once y'all say, okay, now they can do this, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Everybody that's okey dokey with this.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, under new business is accept the resignation of Francis Ellis as vacancy chair.
I move to accept the resignation of Francis Ellis as vacancy chair.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of acceptance? Aye.
Aye.
I make the motion to appoint Bob Ellis to the position of vacancy board chair.
Give a second?
No.
I'll second that motion. And I'll just make a comment. Francis Ellis has been a resident of the township for many, many years. She kind of reminds me of Sally Starr, always has a pack and a gun or something, I don't know. Anyway, her health is very, very poor. We don't expect to see her around very often anymore. Anyway, so this is just cleaning up some business of that position ahead of time. Anyway, any comments from the audience? Sarah?
When I saw it on the agenda, I thought maybe tonight you were going to be asking if there were people who could be volunteering for or recommended for that position, but I guess you decided to solve it. You've made the commitment previously to try to engage the residents when there's a vacancy of some kind. So I was sort of expecting it to happen tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing now, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Next, we go to the public comment of non-agenda items. Chris?
I have two. I get.
Hold on, Chris.
I'm
Yes.
sorry. Bernie, can you tell us why you abstained?
Yes, number one, I was left out of the decision-making process. I agree with Sarah that it should have been put out to the general public, which it hasn't been. And I don't know this person, so why would I vote for somebody I know nothing about? Suffice?
I didn't realize that, come to the microphone. Excuse me, Sarah.
I was going to bring it back to you.
No, Sarah, you were up first.
No, excuse me. I didn't realize that the vacancy board typically is something that you call for volunteers for. It's not a commission, it's an appointment. So I understand your point, maybe you don't know Bob, but I don't understand your point as calling for volunteers to handle the vacancy board. That just to me sounds, just like you're standing on some kind of ceremony. Thank you.
No ceremony. No, there may be a more qualified person.
So, Bernie, I'd like to verify that you were not involved in this decision.
Correct.
So was this made in executive session and you were not present?
No, my wife happens to be a good friend of Francis Ellis.
I understand that.
Bob. And she's been over to her house several times. And this is not a position that you would normally call for volunteers for. It would not, Sarah.
Okay,
It's appointed.
that's not where
So
I
there
was
no-
going, John.
Bernie's allowed to have his opinion on this, and I respect that.
That's not
But-
where I was
But let me
going.
finish, Sarah. But Mike and I never talked about it. I got a phone call 4:30 this afternoon, and was made aware this was going to be a topic. And she, by Erica, by the way, and she asked me how I felt about it, and I was fine with it. So that's how I felt about it. So there was no subversion. I happen to be friends with both Bob and Francis, and it's the word I'm looking for. I think I should just leave it there. Yes, Sarah.
I'm the one who brought it up to Erica.
Okay, I was trying to understand what Bernie was saying. So, thank you for your clarification.
Bernie's quite capable of speaking his mind. I
Well,
thought he
that's
did
why I
eloquently.
was asking. And I do have a lot of compassion for Frances' situation. I'm sorry to hear that she's doing so poorly. So, thank you.
Chris.
The two issues, I guess one of them, I brought them up many years ago. The first one is more of a Erica, I think, sort of thing, where I live on Old Kimberton Road, and they put in a section they call New Kimberton Road, which is 113, and it causes all kinds of confusion to UPS, FedEx, and everybody else, and people that are trying to find my place. I realize that you probably have to talk to Google Maps and everybody else. I'm not quite sure how this all works, but Old Kimberton Road has a distinction of being one of the most well-known thoroughfares for the Underground Railroad, and I think that it should be distinguished from 113 with signage that says Old Kimberton Road. You would need 5 signs. And I think the spelling should be capital O, small l, small d, capital K, Old Kimberton Road, to reflect just the historic nature of the road. As I say, it's not a big thing to do other than I looked up the place to get the signs. You're talking five signs to do it.
Would you recommend having the designation of it being part of the Underground Railroad?
If there was some sort of trail thing, I'm not quite sure how you do that. I don't know if there's trail recognition type stuff, but there was a slave cave across the road. When I was a kid, I used to play in the thing, and it has a history because it was all connected to Kimber Hall and the Quakers and things that were there. And in fact, my farm was purchased from a black family back at the turn of the century. It's interesting. Black family in Philadelphia.
Perhaps our historic commission should weigh in on this and make it more than, and then you get.
They did. There was a whole
program.
Yeah, a whole program where the Historical Society did do a thing on it. I could have contributed a lot to it because I know a lot about it, but they identified the Fraley House and another one that's down the road as all part of it, in Kimber Hall and stuff. But anyhow, the point is that it would really be nice to change it to Old Kimberton Road and just have that section of highway. I know what they're doing in 113. They want to call it like Pikes. There used to be a mill on Pikeland Road, so they call it Pike Road at that point, and then they call it Kimberton Road in front of Old Kimberton Road. And they change the name of it as you go down it, which is sort of nice. It's cute, but if we could do that.
Hold on, Chris.
So you're asking for a renaming of Kimberton Road?
Yes, I asked for a renaming. I wasn't sure about, is that something that needs to get on the agenda? Or
I'm taking care of it right now. Erica, could you look into the possibility to see what we have to do?
I remember looking at this before. Let me dig up my notes and review it. That's fine.
John, before Chris moves on that one, I believe there are certain state standards that come into play with signage, and that I think they go to all caps. And so you bump into that issue. There's another case, I think up in a different county, where they've got the same road name in 2 different townships. And just like you said, it's a nightmare for the delivery people or somebody trying to find their friend's home. When they were talking about changing it, it was a big thing going through with the developer. You've got to abandon a name, rededicate it with a new name. It's kind of like Eagle Farm, where you abandon the right-of-way and then put it in a new one. There's a whole legal process.
I'm sure Erica's going to go through all that.
It's not as simple as one would like to go and think it is.
Thank you.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that is probably a very opportune time. I can't think of anybody that lives on that road that would object to it being changed to Old Kimberton Road. It's not as though there's industries that have stationary to the max and stuff.
Gentlemen,
It may not be an issue.
It's not like we're going to send somebody out and hammer up or put up signs without doing the homework. That's why we have a manager who gets paid very well for this sort of thing. So,
Chris, you need to get a petition going.
Well, I didn't know whether that was an agenda thing. I think I emailed somebody about that, saying, is this something that has to be presented to the supervisors and an agenda thing to be voted on? But I remember when I brought it up when Erica first started here, and she said, you know, I'll look into that. And then I dropped the ball, and I never went with it any further in that. So you had even said, pursue me, and I never did. So. The other thing was also a reason that I came to this meeting about 6-7 years ago when Mr. Miller was a supervisor, and one of the things that I had recognized from being here all my life was that my road had never been repaved in my entire lifetime, and I'm over 60 now. It's never been repaved, and that's pretty phenomenal. However, now it's sort of falling apart, and of course, I look at Flint Road that was just recently done, and I started looking at the sides of the road and started thinking about it, and there's a process called hydrofraction. And it's a reason why in earthquakes, buildings fall down. What happens is that if you go to a beach and you tap your foot on the sand when it's wet, the sand gives way to your foot, and the sand moves out of the way. So what happens is when you have a road and the water can get into the gravel underneath it, every time a car goes over it, it flexes the road and flushes the gravel and aggregate out of it, so the road starts to collapse. And when that happens, then the next thing that we all hear about, oh, the water gets into the cracks and freezes in the winter. That's not what destroys the road. What destroys the road is water getting underneath it. And when I first came here 6 years ago, I said to Mr. Miller, I said, you know, somebody to talk to the road supervisor about getting a grader and cutting the edge of the road so that the edge of the road is lower than the bed of the road. And he said something about, well, we didn't quite understand it. And later somebody said, well, the technical form for that, the supervisors call that ditching. And because you did not use the word ditching, they did not listen to you. So I'm using the word ditching now, and I would wager it will save hundreds of thousands of dollars over time by cutting the sides of the road. And I will also wager that there are areas on Flint Road within 5 years are going to be falling apart, because on the side, the straightaway side of it, water comes down and it just sits there in pools, which means that the underside of that road is just a wash. And every time a car goes over it, as I go to the parking lot for Natural Lands, it's this pounding. And what's going to happen is it's going to hydrofraction the road, and then it's going to fall apart. And if you don't believe it, drive on 401, drive on any road, and look at the area, look at the edge of the road where the water can't get away. And what you'll see is the roads are all falling apart at those points. And on 401, when they went and cut those rumble strips, what happened was the rumble strips turned into cracks, water went down in there and broke apart 401. So I just want to say that somehow this has to happen. I know I said something to Barry about this a while back, and he said, oh, well, you know, when they grade the sides of the road, they end up with all this dirt, and it's considered toxic waste. Well, my father used to ask when they did the roads, with Proctor Weather, to please deliver the trash to our farm, because we'd love to have it. And I still feel that way. I mean, if you guys want to grade the road and you know cut it, it's basically runoff. It's topsoil with a bunch of cans in it. And if you have, what I have is a bucket for a tractor that has slots through it, I can sift through the stuff and I end up with topsoil. So it's free topsoil to me, with a little bit of aggregate gravel from when the roads are cindered during the winter time. So if there's a problem getting rid of it, I will take it all. So it really, I mean, not doing it to the roads is absolute suicide for the roads, suicide.
I know we do ditch. We do a lot of ditching.
The only place I saw some was recently in, and I don't know whether it's in West Vincent, but it was right near Horseshoe Trail and Chester Springs Road. The edge was cut right there, but that's the only place I've seen it.
Well,
another point.
Here, on 401.
Well, you see the roads will fall apart there. It already is. But there was another point I was going to. Oh, another point is that when you edge, you take out all these little saplings, and the problem is eventually they get so big that you can't edge anymore. And then you need to go in with a backhoe and you need to tear out all the root systems and stuff if you don't keep up with it. You also can't have sympathy towards people with lawn. Like I have lawn that goes right up the road. You know, the hell with Chris Peoples, go ahead and grade it. You know, that it's road land and it needs to be done.
It's in the right way.
Yeah. So you can't have sympathies for people. It just has to be done.
Yeah, and to support the idea of the ditching, I came here in 1982. Before that, I lived my life in the Netherlands and I'd never seen a pothole. However, all the roads in Holland have ditches alongside them. And the groundwater is always about 2 feet below the street level. And there is never a pothole, never seen one, and even when I go back now, there's never a pothole to be found.
I noticed that in Maryland too. Their ditches are huge along the roads.
It seems to work.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other non-agenda items?
I move to adjourn.
Not fast enough.
I believe on 2 previous occasions I discussed with the board possible uses for the capital reserve money that accrued over the sewer system for Weatherstone. And I understand you have a lot of things in need, but that money did come just from Weatherstone. I would like you to reconsider charging a fee to the gardeners in the township garden and use some of that money, some of that $1 million+ for the $6,000 or so it's supposed to cost if you hook up to Aqua PA. That garden is a big benefit to Weatherstone. I think the majority of the gardeners are from Weatherstone. It would make sense to return some of it in fact for our use.
Eric, I'd like you to comment on this, but quickly. I may be in favor of that, okay? If I was, I've been advised by our counsel, who's not here, that if I was to publicly be in favor and actually do that, I would be making myself liable for those exact costs, because that's, what's he call it?
Surcharge.
What, suicide?
Surcharge. And also the attorney for the Weatherstone HOA did reach out to us, so.
Well, I'm not saying just for the Weatherstone residents, just use some of that money that you wanted to use for roads or other things.
Now that's a proposal we hadn't heard. Run that by Joe, because I guess it's supposed to be in litigation.
Yeah.
You explained that. By law, you said you can't return the money to us, but repairing the bridge over the creek on our little trail made a big difference. It gets well used. And this would be something else. And like I say, I think more people from Weatherstone will be using it if that water with pressure is available.
Sure.
So indirectly, it would be a benefit to Weatherstone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Keep coming back. Any other comments?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second. Did you notice how quick you was? All those
I
in
wasn't
favor?
quick enough.
Aye. Aye.
It's been on my two
I was thinking about it, like, I could write down something out there for everybody. I know. That's I know. Yeah.
You call tomorrow.
Sure.
All right, thanks. All
right, go for
Chris said he could come around and meet me now. He said he would come, but he said he'd come anytime.